Hey, good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's having a wonderful evening, as good as you can. This is the beginning of shadow season. It's going to be interesting this year, at least for me, that I can see. It's already getting started with a bang, man. Um, just before I get into this, I just want to say that, like, as we go into shadow season, those things that we've been working on all year, and the things that are blocking us from them are coming up right now, in between now and the end of winter. These things coming up, these blockages that are coming up from deep down. Just do your best to be patient and be compassionate with yourself, especially, and with others around you that it has to deal with. Um, I'm sure the things coming up for everybody are difficult in their own way. You know, obviously they were suppressed for a reason, right? So tonight I wanted to talk about unprocessed shame. A brief guide to unprocessed childhood toxic shame. This is a real issue in life. I never understood what my issue was, but I see that issues are multifaceted, that they come from a myriad of things that we just didn't understand nor know how to even process. So they just got put aside for later, you know what I mean, when we could later do it. And this is the later part when we are adults and we can obtain the knowledge through life experience and everything else that, okay, this happened, but this isn't, this isn't who I am. So this needs to go. You know what I mean? The blockage needs to go now. You know what I mean? Things are stored in DNA memory, which is a whole nother video. I think I talked a little bit about it in a previous one recently previous. So like within the last 2 or 3 videos. Yeah, this is all coming up. It's being released. It's coming up to be released. You have the choice to release it. Okay, I'm not saying it's going to be released. I'm saying you have the choice to release it. It's up to you to release it. Christ said, as you believe, so let it be done unto you. Christ didn't heal anybody. He taught them how to heal themselves. So, it is up to you to surrender and to release this, whatever it is coming up. But I see that, like, childhood trauma, toxic shame, it comes from it. I see now that it also comes from neglect. If your parents weren't around, it causes some weird mental flippin' crap within a person. Like, I've been praying to find the root of my issues. I see a pretty big frickin' root. You know what I mean? Like, if the problem were a tree, this is a frickin' cedar. Like, ponderosa pine kind of crap, man. Big redwood tree kind of stuff. For me, anyways. You know what I mean? So, like, everybody's issue is only as big as we make it, but it's still an issue. So, more or less, we make mountains out of molehills, but it's denying the fear. It's not allowing the fear to win. That you are bigger than your problems. And that the good things in life, they do outweigh the bad. And if they're not outweighing them, they are pretty damn even. You know what I mean? Just, we gotta look for the good. The bad comes easy because that's who we are. We're in flesh. We resonate with that. You know what I mean? And it's really easy for the program to just be nothing but seeing the negative. I noticed it when I was taking tests that, like, I have test anxiety because I have anxiety, and I start taking the test and I get hung up on the misinformation because I'm in an anxious, fearful mode that, oh, I'm going to fail this. So I do fail it. I make it so. You know what I mean? I don't mean to, but it's actually what happens. It's what we do with everything in our lives. We kind of do it just like that. So as we believe, it will be so. Our thoughts do create our reality, but it takes a long time to change programming. 28 days is that's a fraction of it. A fraction of it. 515. God, man, everything's always mirroring for me, or really like significant numbers coming up all day long. All day long. The spirit is just. I've never had to translate so many messages ever in my life. But I'm grateful for them. I can't tell you just how grateful I am to just see why my pain exists. And what it came from and stuff. Because that way, now I see it. Now I'm mature enough to deal with it. It's like when we're not emotionally mature, or, even if we're not mentally mature. Shoot, even when we're not spiritually mature, if we're not spiritually mature, we're not going to get the deeper meanings of anything in the Bible. It's going to be the surface thing that Christ came to the world as God in flesh and died for us. He was born of a virgin, and that was it. No, there is so much more. Oh my God. So much more. Whoa. So much more in that book. But you have to dig. You have to build a relationship with God and Christ himself and your divine mother, represented by the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, the breath, the living breath of the living God, blown into the nostrils of Adam and every animal, plant, tree on the face of this earth. It's life. But here, let's get into this. Enough of me rambling about my life and stuff. Thank you for listening. I see this as like an issue that we all deal with. I begun to do this to my children, and I'm still trying to break the cycle. It's horrible. Like, I didn't even know, but and that just creates more shame, right? Does it not? It's time that we all talk about the things that we're all ashamed of about ourselves, that we can release them. If we can communicate that we are shameful or that we are fearful of something, then it tends to lose its power. If you can name it, it normally loses its power as long as you can name it, because what do we do in demonology? We name the demon. We name that demonic energy. And because we know its name, now God's already given us the recipe to get rid of these things. So now that we have its name, boop, 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 dude, give me that Rolodex. Bam. Okay. I'm not going to use any names for, names or sigils. So, you know what I mean? So, like, that's kind of the same thing. We got to name it. We got to understand our problem in order to address it. So when we're children, and we don't have the mental faculties or the emotional capabilities to understand what we're even feeling, let alone why we're feeling it. What is really going on here? Because our soul is a fully grown being in a baby's flippin' body. You know what I mean? So the soul understands, but the body doesn't. The mind doesn't. The mind doesn't get it. And if the mind breaks, then you just got a shattered vessel, and you're going to end up in a mental hospital or worse, the rest of your life. You know what I mean? The body cannot live without the mind. In 858. And so the mind blocks things off and walls things off so that, okay, we're just going to focus on this stuff over here. You know what I mean? And it walls things off. But then there's a time when, but it affects all of our dealings because it's still there. Even though we're not even focused on it, we don't even know it's there anymore. It's still there, so it taints everything that we do. It's like if I put a drop of arsenic in this bottle of water, would you still drink it? It's only a drop. It's not a lot. You know what I mean? You probably won't even die. But would you still drink it, knowing that I put a drop of arsenic in it? No. You probably wouldn't, not unless you have a death wish, right? So that one drop made this whole bottle of water poisonous. It's only one drop. There's 20 ounces in here. It shouldn't be that bad. No, it poisoned the whole thing. That's what it does to our vessel. It poisons our whole container. That one little bit of poison. And that's what's going on with the world today. That's why the world is in the state that it's in. Because we haven't addressed the trauma, and we're still going on trying to be a human being and function, but everything we do is tainted by that trauma. When you're in trauma, everything you do is tainted by it. It holds you a slave. Like you have a tether, a chain tied to a peg over there. And no matter how far you get and you see the light, you can feel it on your skin. Then you're pulled back. I can't tell you how many times it's happened to me in my life. I literally became so defeated that I didn't even want to go out and fight the war. Screw it, the battle's already lost. The war's lost, why go fight the battle? You know what I mean? And that's the mentality that we get into. And we live there in despair. And we just, no matter how much joy that we create, we still, because that poison is there, we manifest tainted joy. That's why we have amazing marriages with problems. What? Those two things shouldn't even be in the same sentence. You know what I mean? I get it, everybody has issues and ups and downs, right? But should be able to function together, and but no, there's a bunch of dysfunctional crap going on. Seriously. So I'll leave that analogy and we'll get into this. A brief guide to unprocessed childhood toxic shame. Toxic shame is one of the most common debilitating feelings that people struggle with. Toxic shame is a term that refers to a chronic feeling or emotional state of feeling bad, worthless, inferior, and fundamentally flawed. It is called toxic because it is unjust, whereas healthy shame is when we do something morally wrong, such as aggressing against others. The origins of toxic shame. Toxic shame has its roots in trauma. Trauma is a word that people either don't think much about or they associate it with something extreme, like broken bones or severe sexual abuse. While these things are indeed very traumatic, and I would agree 100%, I can only imagine, there are a lot of traumatic experiences that people don't recognize as trauma. That's why many people struggle to understand how things like childhood neglect can be a form of abuse and trauma. Let me scoot this back. There you go. Sorry about that. That's so very true that, neglect is trauma. It creates abandonment and neediness and codependency on a bipolar scale. This is what happened to me. In most cases, it is trauma a person experienced in their childhood and adolescence. Moreover, this trauma was experienced in a repeated fashion and wasn't processed as such nor healed, so the person was conditioned into routinely feeling ashamed when there was nothing or very little to be ashamed of. And it's a multifaceted thing in shame. I have a friend's video. I'm seeking permission to post it on my channel, but we'll see. If not, I will put it in the community section. I'll find out how to do that, and I'll link the video in the community section. Actually, I could probably link it in the comments, but see, I want to ask first, but I want to this gentleman, it's on point. It's like a 20-minute video. I had to watch it in like 5 segments. I couldn't even watch it all together. And it's 5 different kinds of shame, like, that are rooted in childhood shame. It's just 5 different facets of it. All 5 resonated on some level. My gut turned just like, oh my God. Just my soul just moaned within me, just like, ugh. But it's worth it to address it and get rid of it. We don't need it, right? It's just going to hold us back further. So, that's the whole point of doing the inner work. That's the whole point of this kind of work. It's to bring those things up so that we can shed them, refine ourselves like gold. Well, God refines us. Trust me, we don't do it ourselves. Trust me, if I had my way, I'd have gone the other way, but that's the only way. So, here I am. Okay. Routinely feeling ashamed. So, regarding toxic shame, specifically, it develops because an individual's primary caregivers or other important figures routinely shamed or punished them, either passively or actively. Such a person internalized those hurtful and untrue words and behaviors, and it became their understanding of who they are as a person. Yeah. Yeah. Ouch. Toxic shame beliefs and emotional states. I haven't read this. It's probably really gonna hurt. I'm really sorry if I start breaking out crying or something. I'll try and hold myself together. But I mean, like, this is probably gonna hurt. This trigger warning. Trigger warning. God, I should have put that. I'll put that in the title. Thank you. Thank you. Some common beliefs a person suffering from toxic shame may have include: I am unlovable. I don't matter. Everything is my fault. I can't do anything right. I don't deserve good things. I was a bad child. I deserve to be treated the way others treat me. I am a bad person. My needs and wants are not important. Nobody likes me. I can't be myself around others. I have to hide my true emotions and thoughts. I never feel good enough. You know what? Thank you, God, that is not true anymore. And I'm only saying this for the purpose of teaching and helping, for mending, not to spread the trauma any further. I can see where my negative self-talk was exactly that paragraph my entire life. Even now I struggle with feeling worthy for the gifts I receive. I don't know how to receive. Somebody gives me a compliment like, dude, you're brilliant. I literally like, well, thank you. You're brilliant. Really, you are, not me. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Literally, that's what I do. It's programmed to, I just automatically do it. Before I even know that that's what my response is going to be, my mouth is already moving. Like, our subconscious runs everything. Like 3% of our day, we actually cognitively choose. 3%. That is on replay, on a loop, in billions of heads. I'm willing to bet at least 2/3 of the population sits in a mentality similar to this, in some form or fashion, in regarding to some aspect of their life. Seriously. We explored the topic more in a previous article, and it's titled 5 Beliefs People with Adverse Upbringing Have About Themselves. So 5 beliefs people with adverse upbringings have about themselves. And so it's on psychcentral.com is the resource I'm using, actually, so that I'm not good about putting things in the comments, but I'm getting better about giving the resources I use their due credit, because that is paramount. Credit where credit's due, because I can't take any credit that it's not mine. It's not mine to take. I've learned my lesson. I do gotta say, I am so grateful for the astrologers and the mystics, the shamans, the spiritualists, those who were dedicated to seeking out the God, the true divine within the world, within us. I'm so grateful for those who went within and did the work prior, that I could come today and take part in it and do what I do today. Thank you for all the suffering that went before me so that I could do what I'm doing now. Straight up. Shout out. So, it is common for a shame-ridden person to also suffer from chronic anxiety and low self-esteem. Some people cope by hurting or not taking care of themselves, while some hurt other people and become highly antisocial and narcissistic. Yeah. Yeah. The demon rejoices when the victim becomes the oppressor. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that much. Toxic shame is often accompanied by toxic guilt, where the person feels unjust responsibility and guilt. So the person not only feels ashamed, but also guilty for the things they are not actually responsible for. They also feel responsible for other people's emotions and feel ashamed and guilty when other people are unhappy, especially if it's in some way related to them. This is hard. You ever try to read stuff with just like a ball in your throat? You're just holding it back and your gut's already turning. The shakes begin to set in your lower back, and just like you just begin to feel the tremble go through your body. Yeah. That's how you know you're alive. It used to be how it was, but I'm happy it's changing. It's common that shame-ridden people lack a sense of self and are dominated by their false self, which is a combination of adaptation techniques and coping mechanisms that they developed to deal with their unsolved trauma. As I write in the book, Human Development and Trauma. I'm not sure who wrote the book, but they left the title. I might actually pull that up. I'm sorry, I just had to see if it was actually a part of the article or just like an ad in between. This early erasure, it's Erasure if you're interested. Erasure of self often develops, I'm going to have to look that up, that's a new word for me. This part of self often develops into an internalized practice of self-erasure. I want to say that it's like that prompt 2 programming. That like, oh, well, here, just spew it. Just, here, this is what I've come to just say because it gets me what I need, or it keeps the problems from coming. So, like, they just auto-respond, subconscious auto-respond. Regurgitate shit. Regurgitate. That's it. I'm liking it. It's like that for a long time. It took me a long time to find a voice. I think I'm still sometimes finding it. Okay. So, this early erasure of self often develops into an internalized practice of self-erasure in later life, or various other emotional problems like the inability to name emotions, the presence of guilt and shame about feeling emotion, or a general numbness surrounding emotion. If I had check boxes in front of me, I would shamefully have to say that I've checked every box. Toxic shame behaviors. Lack of healthy self-love. Because such a person usually suffers from low self-esteem and overt or covert self-loathing, these things manifest themselves in poor self-care, self-harm, lack of empathy, inadequate social skills, and more. Emptiness. The person also feels chronic emptiness, loneliness, and lack of motivation. They don't want to do anything, don't have any active goals, and do things only to distract themselves from how they feel. Probably doing it right now. Perfectionism. God, another box, man. Like literally, I'm going to check every box. Perfectionism. A lot of people who struggle with toxic shame are also highly perfectionistic. Because as children they were held to unrealistic standards and punished and shamed for failing to meet them. Narcissism. On the other side of the spectrum, there are those who develop grandiose fantasies about how they will become rich, famous, powerful, and conquer the world, believing it will make those painful feelings go away, which is not what happens even if they succeed. Unhealthy relationships. Many people suffering from toxic shame have unhealthy relationships because they don't know what a healthy relationship looks like, or they are incapable of building and maintaining one. Setting better boundaries starts here. No, that's actually an ad. I'm sorry. The boundary stuff is an ad in between. Sorry about that. Usually they settle for good enough relationships, whether both parties are highly unhappy but are too weak in their own way to pursue true happiness. I've had every relationship I've ever had felt like that, except for, well, you know what? They all felt like that. They were all like that. They were out of neediness and convenience. I think even for both parties. I don't know if it was ever mutual, but I don't know. I don't ever dare to know the other person's feelings, but I've come to know that it's impossible for another person to love you that's not yours. If they don't belong to your soul family, they are never gonna actually have that unconditional love that we all seek from one another. It's unlawful for us to covet anything that doesn't belong to us, including thy brother's wife, people out there, but just, I'm sorry, I don't mean to change the subject. I think maybe my inner self just needed a moment to get something else on the mind. But yeah, this is why I can't hold a steady focused thought, because when I'd start actually thinking, it's things like this, but then I'd start trailing off rabbit holes. So, usually they settle for a good enough relationship, whether both parties are highly unhappy but are too weak in their own way to pursue true happiness. Sometimes, again, it's because they believe they don't deserve anything better. Also, the relationship is a decent way to cope with all the unbearable, painful feelings that come up when the person is alone. Susceptibility to manipulation. If I had to tell my story, Everything in this article so far is in it. I can only imagine what's in it for the rest of you. I get it. This kind of stuff is generational. It affects our children, our grandparents, everyone. But it's up to us. We're the ones that are here now, so it's up to us. Susceptibility to manipulation. Since they are ridden with toxic shame, guilt, loneliness, and inadequacy, manipulators can push those exact buttons to make them feel those exact emotions, and then they will do what the manipulator wants to get rid of that painful emotion. I have a stepdad that would do that. I had plenty of women that would do that too. Just push my buttons, just knowing that what response they were going to get, so that it would make it easier for them to not blame themselves for me leaving. That's projection. And I see how everyone in my life has done that to me, including family. I'm grateful though. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's noted. So here, let us just continue. It's like we're all in shadow. So when we're in shadow, the sword of light is in the hand of the shadow. It's no longer in your angel's hand. So during the year, you better hope that you're doing the work, so that in shadow season, your shadow doesn't destroy everything you have with that sword. And then you get it back in, when it's time. We'll say you just get it back when it's time, and then you're left there having to rebuild and going, what the hell, I wanted all this. And then you're left dealing with the pain, the shame, the guilt all over again, and just starting the cycle over and making more. Not just having to deal with the already there pain, but now multiplying it. Serious. So do the work. It's important to do the work. I see where I've got a lot of conversations I gotta have. I don't think there's any point to. I don't think anybody else cares, but so, why are you hurting me? Don't you want to be a part of us instead of being a lonely loser? This product will finally make you look beautiful. It's all your fault. There are many examples of things abusers and manipulators say. Summary and final words. Children who experience trauma often feel shame. Since this shame is usually unidentified and unaddressed, the child grows into an adult who suffers from a chronic shame. Toxic shame is closely related to other emotional states and beliefs, including low self-esteem, self-loathing, chronic guilt, unresolved anger, and never feeling good enough. Thank God I've got a therapist and a counselor and shit now. Consequently, these mental states result in unhealthy behavior, including acting out, hurting others, feeling responsible for others, self-erasing, self-beraving, having toxic relationships, poor self-care, poor boundaries, being overly sensitive to other people's perceptions of them, being susceptible to manipulation and exploitation, and many others. All these painful, unprocessed emotions actually belong in the context of their childhood environment, where they were initially hurt and violated. But they are currently unable to make that connection and resolve it, so they deal with them in the ways they learned, actively or passively, hurting themselves or others or both. Yeah, I smoked for like 20 years. I didn't ever want to smoke. I just wanted to die. fucking hated smoking. Now it's all I can think about, even though I don't smoke anymore. It's all I can think about. Thought's always there. It's a flippin' curse. All right, and then there's just a bunch of resources for help. Um, yeah, I just want to say thank you, all those who make it to the end of this. I'm really grateful for your attention and your time. Very, this is a very important matter to me, obviously. That whole article resonated. And I get it. The people that are supposed to love you, the people that you trust the most, the people that you counted on, the people that you needed, weren't. It is devastating to a child's mind. It's all about dealing with it in the present, though. Make the connection. I hope you guys heal. And, at least, now if you are, since, having seen this, maybe we're a little bit more educated. We can recognize these signs in our children and other children, and we can get them the help that they need. We can recognize this in our friends and our family members as well, and co-workers, and kind of drop seeds for them. We don't ever want to point it out to people, because that brings, that makes it all so real again. But you kind of want to, drop hints, little, steer them. Like, not steer them, that's manipulation, but, ouch, like I see where I've become the damn oppressor. So, like, you want to just plant the seed and just allow God to work. Allow the universe to do its thing, because the universe will come and water it on its own. It doesn't need you. And it's a lesson I had to learn along the way, too, is it doesn't need me. I need it. You know what I mean? So I just hope that this helps everyone, just be a little bit more aware, raise our consciousness. I love you guys. We're all one soul. Shared. We have a shared soul. Doesn't matter what color or race or age, ethnicity, nothing. Doesn't matter what religion or political affiliate you are. We're all one soul. Multiplied through 8.4 billion bodies and counting. Show the love. It's time for that. God bless you guys. Love and light.